Welcome to your deep dive. Today we are going to explore ketamine.
Oh, yeah.
It's captured the imagination of everyone, scientists, the public, everyone, really. And to help guide us, we're going to be pulling from Ketamine, Dreams and Realities by Carl Jansen.
Awesome.
And this book is really fascinating. It's got all these insights from scientific reports and then personal accounts and even how ketamine shows up in like our culture.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Like, it's in the operating room and it's in the club. It's this very strange
Yeah, it's kind of everywhere.
substance.
It really is. And there's so much we don't know about it. So
Yeah.
that's what makes this a deep dive so exciting.
Yeah.
One of the things that really struck me at the beginning of the book was this huge surge in ketamine research
Yeah.
in all these different medical fields, anesthesiology and emergency medicine, pain management.
Well, it makes sense because it really boasts this incredible safety profile.
Yeah, and that's what I find so puzzling.
Yeah.
How can a drug with such a good safety record be classified as a controlled substance?
Right.
Like it is in the US and Australia.
It's a really good question. And I think it speaks to the history of ketamine and the perception of it and whether that stigma is maybe outweighing some of the potential benefits.
Yeah, it seems like there's a disconnect there for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe if we understand ketamine's journey through time a little bit, that might help make sense of things.
Sure.
Janssen takes us all the way back to its invention in 1962.
Okay.
But then things get really interesting in the 1990s when ketamine starts popping up in clubs and at raves.
Yeah, we see that a lot in the 90s.
Yeah, and even earlier than that, there were signs that people were interested in ketamine for more than just medical reasons.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there's this anecdote in the book about this heroin user in Australia in the 1970s,
Okay.
and he breaks into a vet clinic,
Wow.
finds this mysterious substance called Ketalar,
Oh, wow.
which is basically ketamine,
Okay.
and decides to inject it.
Oh, so even back then, people were interested in it outside of the medical.
I know, it's so interesting, isn't it? I'm curious though, like what does that story tell us about ketamine's early appeal? Was it just someone desperate for a fix, or was there something more to it?
It might be something a little bit more because, like, heroin is very much like an oblivion drug,
Right.
you know? So maybe he was searching for something else. And it speaks to the fact that ketamine does produce these altered states of consciousness that people find desirable,
Yeah.
regardless of the context.
That's a good point. Yeah, it seems like ketamine has always had this kind of allure, this ability to take people outside of themselves.
Yeah.
And speaking of altered states, there's a whole chapter in the book about ketamine and near-death experiences.
Oh, yeah. NDEs. Those are so interesting.
Yeah, have you ever read about those?
I have people report these incredibly profound experiences, like out-of-body sensations, seeing a bright light, and they have this overwhelming sense of peace and unity.
Right.
But the thing is, ketamine can actually cause very similar sensations.
Wait, so you're telling me that taking ketamine can mimic a near-death experience?
Yeah, at certain doses,
Oh,
we call them psychedelic doses of ketamine.
okay.
And they're high enough to really change your perception and your consciousness. And people on these doses report having very similar experiences to near-death experiences.
No, that's wild.
It is.
The book even has this story about this person who experienced a near-death experience during a fire.
Okay.
And then years later, while taking ketamine, they had the exact same sensations.
Really? It makes you wonder, is ketamine tapping into something deeper, a reality we only get glimpses of in extreme situations?
Right.
Or is it just mimicking what happens in the brain?
Yeah, that's pretty mind-blowing. It really makes you think about like what is going on
Totally.
with this substance. But while it's super fascinating to think about ketamine's ability to alter our consciousness,
Yeah.
we have to acknowledge the fact that there are also risks involved, right?
Absolutely. We need to look at both sides to get the full picture.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jansen definitely doesn't shy away from talking about the risks in the book,
I know he doesn't.
especially when it comes to like addiction.
Right. He talks about Dee, who really struggled with heavy ketamine use.
Oh, yeah.
It's a cautionary tale.
Oh.
Highlights how emotionally difficult addiction can be.
Yeah, and the book also mentions some of the physical risks too, especially like if it's injected.
Exactly. Harm reduction is so important.
Yeah.
You've got to be informed about the risks and take the right precautions.
So we've talked about some of the dangers, but I'm also curious about the potential of ketamine to heal. Like one of the things that really interested me in the book was this whole discussion of ketamine psychedelic therapy.
Now, KPT
Yeah, KPT.
is gaining a lot of traction. Yeah, especially for things like alcohol dependence.
That's so interesting. I have to admit, the idea of using psychedelics in therapy still feels kind of radical to me.
I get that.
How does it even work?
So KPT is based on the idea that ketamine can help people get into their unconscious mind.
Okay.
So it's about creating this safe and controlled environment for the patient to explore their inner world and work through some of those deep-seated issues.
So it's like ketamine is kind of acting as a guide
Yeah.
to help people navigate like the uncharted territories of their own minds.
That's a great way to put it.
That's really interesting. And Jansen has some really amazing stories from people who have gone through KPT.
He does.
And they experienced like real changes in their thinking and their behavior.
Yeah.
There's one person who talks about getting sober after struggling with alcohol for years.
It's pretty powerful stuff.
That is really incredible, but I'm sure there's still a lot of controversy surrounding this type of therapy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are definitely some ethical concerns about using psychedelics for therapy.
Right.
Some people are worried about things like abuse, or long-term psychological effects.
Yeah, I can see that.
We have to remember that psychedelic research has a pretty complex and honestly sometimes a very difficult history.
Yeah, Jansen talks about that, doesn't he?
He does.
Like he mentions how all these strict regulations
Yeah.
have made it hard for researchers to study psychedelics.
Right, even in a controlled setting.
Exactly.
So it's like a catch-22. We need more research to really understand the potential benefits and risks.
Right.
But those same regulations make it really hard to actually do that research.
So it's like this balancing act
It is a delicate balance.
between like wanting to learn more and being cautious.
Exactly.
It seems like with KPT, there's this real tension between the potential benefits
Yeah,
and the fear and stigma surrounding psychedelics.
definitely. I think that's a huge part of the ethical debate. Is like, how do we weigh those potential benefits against the risks and baggage that comes with using something like ketamine?
It's complicated for sure. So what does Jansen say about the future of ketamine therapy? Is he hopeful?
Well, he doesn't give any easy answers,
Okay.
but he wants us to take a more balanced and evidence-based approach.
I see.
He stresses the importance of good research.
Yeah.
Research that's free from bias and political agendas.
Yeah, I mean, we need to look at the science, right?
Absolutely. We can't let fear be the only thing guiding our decisions.
And I thought it was interesting how Jansen emphasizes the need for open-mindedness when it comes to ketamine.
Totally.
He wants people to question their assumptions and to form their own conclusions.
That's really important.
Yeah.
I think we shouldn't shy away from those tough questions.
Yeah.
Right. We need to keep learning. We need to be critical thinkers.
Yeah.
And form our own opinions.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Man, it feels like we've just scratched the surface here.
I know, right? There's so much more we could talk about.
There really is, but unfortunately we are out of time.
Yeah.
But hopefully this has given you a good jumping off point,
Yeah.
to learn even more about ketamine on your own time.
For sure.
If you are interested in digging deeper, I highly recommend checking out Ketamine, Dreams and Realities by Carl Jansen.
It's a great book.
It is a great book, and it goes into way more detail than we could ever cover here.
Definitely.
And just remember, this whole deep dive was made for you.
Yeah.
We wanted to give you a taste of what's out there and get you curious.
Hopefully we did that.
So, yeah, don't stop here. Keep exploring, keep asking those questions, and, keep an open mind.
Always.
Before we go, I want to leave you with one last thought.
Okay.
It's inspired by the book.
Okay.
So is ketamine a window into the mysteries of consciousness and the nature of reality? Or is it just a powerful drug with the potential for both harm and healing?
That is a great question. And, there might not be a single answer.
Yeah.
Maybe it's both.
Right.
It's a story that's still being written.
That's true.
And each of us gets to decide what role ketamine plays in how we see